All right, welcome to Tuesday Night Pokemon here at the Forge. We have our game one, or round one here already going. We have Tim on the bottom here piloting that, I believe is that Dialga, versus Noah on the top playing that Roaring Moon Ancient Box deck.
Very interesting. This is a matchup that we haven't got to see play out at many of the regionals, so this will be cool to see how the prize trade works here for these two decks. And we've heard some murmurs, of course, about Dialga, seeing that it has that new partner in the Metang, being able to accelerate those energies really efficiently onto those Dialga to take some pretty big knockouts pretty early into the game. So we'll see how consistent this list is going to be able to be for us here tonight.
Yeah. So it looks like Tim getting a good start here, has that Mew EX down on the board to draw some extra cards. Beldum, obviously going to evolve up into that Metang that helps him accelerate those metal energies into play. And then Super Rod going to put those metal energies from that Ultra Ball right back into the deck. I imagine we'll see, I think he had a supporter in hand, maybe an Iono or a Research.
Absolutely. I know some of these lists were playing the TM Evolution. I wonder if he was hoping to be able to have an Arven out to that in hand, but I know that one of the most recent lists actually was not playing the TM Evolution at all.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if maybe we're seeing that version of the deck right now.
We do see the TM Evo actually now on that Dialga, however, and going to research that hand away, draw 7 cards here for Tim, finds another Beldum energy. He's got everything he needs to be rolling on the next turn of the game. We're going to have 3 Beldums in play, and then with that TM Evo on that active Dialga, going to be able to evolve 2 of those Beldums up into Metang. That Metang obviously has, I believe it's called the Metal Maker ability, and you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, attach any metal energy you find there to your Pokemon, and then shuffle the other cards back to the bottom of your deck. So TM Evolution, gonna go find those nice pre-release promo Metangs for Tim here. And back over to Noah on his turn, playing that Trekking Shoes, likes what he sees, gonna keep that card. Just needs an energy attachment for turn now to begin attacking with these Roaring Moons. However, I'm sure what he would love to have been able to do is take a knockout with the Roaring Moon EX this turn, but with the play of that Explorer's Guidance for turn, not going to be able to do that. Explorer's Guidance, look at the top 6 cards of your deck, put 2 in your hand, discard the other 4. Great way to get more ancient cards into the discard pile, but can be some tough decisions there. When you see a lot of good cards in there, we see Noah forced to discard a Professor Sada's Vitality as well as a Dunsparce. 2 cards he'd probably like to have in his hand.
You get a lot of dig, but you sacrifice some really difficult discards sometimes. I know a lot of players were having some difficult decisions to make with Flower Selecting with Comfey and with Colress's Experiment. This card seems to take that to the next level.
So Noah with this Nest Ball here, probably going to go find a Dunsparce here. He's already got the attackers he wants, unless he's going to be boldly going after a Roaring Moon EX here. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we're going to see that Dunsparce come down to start establishing that draw power that this deck likes to see.
Yeah, seeing an EX hit the board right now would be a very tempting target. You know, there's already 2 Metangs on board. It's very likely that there's going to be quite a few energy, probably at least 2, maybe even 3 coming off of those. And there's the possibility of that 3rd Beldum being evolved as well. So assuming that he's got V-Star access, that would certainly be a very dangerous play.
Yeah. Another very dangerous play here for Noah if he has that Prime Catcher. I don't know if we've seen it in that hand yet, but that Mew EX, an easy target on Tim's board that is weak to Dark, and with 2 Ancient Supporters already in the discard pile, this Roaring Moon would be taking a 1-hit knockout on that Mew EX.
That would certainly be a play that I'd like to see here if that was able to happen, but only way that would be able to happen is if he was able to draw into the Prime Catcher, which I don't believe was possible.
He does still maybe have concealed cards. I'm not sure if he's used it yet. He does have an energy in hand. Maybe he only has 1 energy in hand and he needs to attach for turn. I thought I might have seen a flash of pink in that hand, which could be that Prime Catcher.
Maybe it's there.
I'm not sure. But that Prime Catcher paired with that Dunsparce with Free Retreat is a very powerful thing. It is in the hand.
Okay.
I swear I just saw it. But I think we're just going to swing into that Dialga.
Getting some
Yeah, it
chip
is in
damage
the
on
hand.
there.
I
It
would
is
have
okay.
loved to see that Prime Catcher play. Obviously, that Dunsparce on the bench has free retreat, so you can Prime Catcher up the Mew, bring up your own Dunsparce, free retreat out of it, and take that first 2 prizes of the game, and remove your opponent's draw power on their board, which
That would have been a powerful play.
very powerful play.
Instead, we see some chip damage. We'll see if that ends up being relevant. It will require quite a few more ancient cards to hit the bin before this is going to turn into a 2-hit KO,
Yeah.
but it's possible.
Yeah. 90 damage coming down onto that Dialga. I believe Noah had 2 ancient cards in the discard pile. Arvin now, from Tim's side, gonna maybe eye up that Ultra Ball to get a third Matang into play. No tool card found there. Already has the other TM Evo in the hand. But I imagine we're going to see that Buddy Poffin and TM Evo Ultra Ball away to go find that third Matang. He also already has the V-Star in hand. So Tim in a very strong position here with 3 Matang out on the board. You have to imagine he's going to be able to at least hit a few energy off of 3 Metal Maker abilities.
Right. And even if he doesn't get too many hits off of there, he is going to be able to utilize that Mew to get a couple of draws as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you drawing with the Mew before you Metal Maker or after?
It's a tough call. I don't know how the math works. I haven't calculated that out for this. But my instinct is saying that you go for the Metal Makers before the draw.
The only reason I say you go for the draw first is you're shuffling non-energy cards to the bottom, so after you Metal Maker, all your supporters and things you found with the Metal Maker are on the bottom of the deck. So you can't draw into them with Mew.
Fair enough.
But I could be wrong. I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about the math on that. But we do see from that first Metal Maker, 1 Metal Energy found. Second Metal Maker finds at least 1 more energy. It is 2 more
double.
energy. Are we going to see the Star Chronos on this turn? He just needs to hit 1 more energy off of 1 more Metal Maker or an energy off of the Mew. He still has not attached for turn yet. We see the third Metal Maker coming down. Whiffs the energy on that one, but still does have the potential to attach for turn to get to the 5 metal energy needed to use that Star Chronos attack.
Get to draw 2 cards here off the Mew, if I remember correctly. Let's see what it is.
Not quite there, but still does have enough energy on that Dialga to take the 1-hit KO on this Roaring Moon. And maybe you're in a situation where you want to save that Star Chronos for a turn where you can Star Chronos KO and then knock out a 2-prizer
Right.
on the following turn and take a 3-prize turn. I don't think that Tim is in danger of having this Dialga V-Star knocked out on Noah's next turn unless Noah can power up a Roaring Moon EX kind of out of nowhere, and I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the only draw he has is that Professor Sada's in hand and no Roaring Moon EX on the board.
This would be an interesting turn to see that, since we didn't see it last turn, but this would be good to see the Prime Catcher into the Mew EX. Just start getting some prizes here.
Yeah, I think that is certainly the play that Noah should be going for here. Needs to stay ahead in the prize trade here.
Right.
You already know that Tim's going to kind of swing it back in his favor when he's able to use that Star Chronos. So you got to get ahead while you can, essentially. You've already set up some damage on this Dialga V-Star. You can finish off that Dialga later with a Roaring Moon EX or even a Baby Roaring Moon if you get enough ancient cards in the discard pile. I think with 90 damage on there, he probably needs 12 ancient cards in the discard pile. I don't think he can get there on this turn, but within 1 or 2 more turns, that is not unlikely.
Right. This is one of those matchups where, as we said before, benching the Roaring Moon EX is a little bit of a liability unless you're going to be taking an immediate knockout with it. And unfortunately, I think in a matchup like this, even if you do get a knockout with the Roaring Moon EX, you can expect a return knockout pretty almost guaranteed, probably 90% of the time.
So that Radiant Greninja going to draw 2 more cards, finds Artisan and a Professor Sada's Vitality, I believe. That Artisan going to be great to get another Roaring Moon into play. I think Noah probably just wants a backup attacker here. He's already got 2 Dunsparce on the field. 3 Dunsparce is better than 2. You can never have too many, but you definitely need another attacker on the field as well. Eyeing up that Prime Catcher, and I do think that is going to be the play that Noah goes for, but going to use that Artisan first. Search his deck for a basic non-rule box Pokemon and put it onto his bench.
We have yet to see the Dunsparce come into play, but when we do, what an exciting ability it has to be able to draw 3 cards off the top of the deck, and then you shuffle itself back in, And of course, the synergy with Artisan being able to immediately rip that Dunsparce back onto the bench makes for a very consistent deck, especially once you get into the mid game.
Absolutely. So Noah shuffling up here after that Artisan, and he was eyeing up that Prime Catcher, so I think we're going to see that come down here to knock out that Mew EX on the bench. Don't have a great read on how many ancient cards in his discard pile, but my guess would be he's up into the 7 or 8 range at this point. With the Earthen Vessel, the Professor Sada, the Roaring Moon that got knocked out last turn.
Right. Of course, the downside of taking the Mew EX knockout here. Oh, wait a minute.
Is he at 12? I don't think that's enough to be at 12, so
I don't think so.
Just going to swing into the Dialga.
Okay.
Unfortunate. I think, I don't know, maybe he doesn't know that the Mew is weak to dark, or maybe it's just kind of slipping his mind here, but
right.
Setting up more damage on the Dialga, we are going to see that Star Chronos here, I imagine, from Tim this turn. However, a few more Metal Makers to start building up energy on that bench Dialga. That first Metal Maker hitting 2 Metal Energies.
Powering up that Mew EX on the bench.
That is scary. That Mew EX can utilize the Radiant Greninja on Noah's side of the board's attack if Tim can boss it up into the active position. And we see another Metal Maker getting 2 more energies, one more coming down onto that Mew EX, and the other, I would imagine, coming down onto the Dialga V.
And these moon decks are
Metang. There maybe is a Metagross in Tim's deck. I guess I forgot that there is a Metagross that has an okay attack as well.
That would be interesting to see. Yeah, that Mew EX probably going to be able to put some work in. Most of these Roaring Moon decks are not playing Manaphy, which means that every single one of those Dunsparce on the bench is a potential Moonlink Shuriken target.
Tim using that Star Chronos, I would have liked to see Tim play, I guess that he had the Arven in hand, so he was, okay, so Arven for the Prime Catcher gets him a way to gust up that Radiant Greninja. So Tim in a very powerful position here, turning this into a 3-prize turn, despite the fact that Noah didn't have any 2-prizers on his board. Tim going to use this Prime Catcher to bring up the Radiant Greninja and utilize Mew EX's attack to copy that Moonlight Shuriken, doing 90 damage to 2 of Noah's Pokemon, and those 2 Dunsparces are going to be going down.
Man.
A powerful play.
Very powerful play, and we start seeing a commanding lead being taken here.
And now Noah really punished for not knocking out that Mew EX on the last turn.
Exactly. Whether that was an oversight or, maybe didn't realize that it was Dark Week, it's hard to know for sure, but boy, I would assume once he figures that out, he'll be kicking himself.
Yeah. Still has Artisan, gets another Dunsparce down here, Roaring Moons to the bench, but I think Noah's in a position where he's just too far behind to come back now. Obviously, he's going to take 2 prizes here and could take 2 prizes on the following turn with that damaged Dialga on the bench. And then his only chance is if Tim doesn't have another attacker powered up by then. But with this many Metang in play and another Dialga V already on the bench, I would imagine it won't be too hard for Tim to get another attacker powered up.
So his Vitality making full value here, but like we said, it's unlikely to be enough in this matchup.
Draws into some good cards off that Sada's Vitality. Unfortunately, I think one of them's Ultra Ball. Normally you'd be using that to go find a Dunsparce, but no Dunsparces were in play at the start of this turn, so they can't evolve. Noah does need to attach for turn to get out of this Greninja as well, which is really annoying. I guess he has the Prime Catcher, but I think at this point you want to save that. Just take out this Mew EX before it does more damage.
Right.
Dark Patch going to go finish powering up one of those benched Roaring Moons. And then an attach for turn to retreat out of this Radiant Greninja would do it for Noah on this turn, allow him to take 2 prizes on that Mew EX.
He is eyeing the Prime Catcher, though. He's going to use it. So this will knock this out.
Take out the powered up, Dialga while you can. Why not? That forces Tim into a position where he's got to hit off his Metal Makers, and that's going to be a lot of energy in the discard for Tim already. So it's getting less and less likely that he hits energy off of these Metal Maker abilities.
Right. We did see one rod already be used by Tim here at the, I think it was maybe his first turn. I'm not sure how many this list plays, maybe 2, maybe 3. But you're right, that definitely energies will be starting to run low here.
And this list, this Ancient Box list, normally plays 1 or 2 counter catchers as well, so that's not the last gusting that Noah will have available to him in the game.
Buddy Poffin coming down, taking stock of what's left in the deck here.
Looks like only 2 or 3 energies left in the deck. I think 3 energies left in the deck here for Tim, so maybe a good call by Noah to knock out that Dialga V-Star. I do see at least 1 more Super Rod in that deck for Tim, but I don't believe he had one in hand, so he's going to have to play a supporter, but I think the only supporter in hand might have been Iono, which in this
There's 2
instance,
energy in hand.
Yeah.
Goes to the bottom, though.
And Iono puts Tim down to 2, which is a tough position to be in. Obviously, he can draw back up with the Mew EX. Another
Station.
great attacker in this matchup as well. That Zamazenta.
Or Zamazenta, that's right. Yep. Yeah, able to hit for 220 if any of your Pokemon were knocked out by damage from an attack during your opponent's last turn. And takes 30 less damage while an energy is attached. Certainly an annoying card for decks like Lost Box to deal with.
I think we just have to see an Iono here. And we'll see what Tim's able to get off of it. He really wants to find that Super Rod if he can.
That'd be huge, being able to shuffle those 2 energy that are on the bottom of the deck potentially further up, as well as...
Draws into Beldum Iono, however.
Yeah.
And only gets to draw 1 with that Mew EX ability. However, he didn't draw into any energy, so there's still energy in that deck that these Metal Makers can hit. First Metal Maker whiffs, but all that does is increase the odds of the next 2 hitting.
I would imagine that we're going to see at least 1 hit here, but we need more than 1.
Definitely needs at least 2. And the second Metal Maker whiffs, can the third hit 2 Metal Energy?
If not, this could be a pretty big recuperation turn here.
Hits 1, hits
2.
2. There it is. And you have to imagine at this point the game is pretty much sealed up from there. The Zamazenta going to do enough damage to take out this Roaring Moon. And as a 1-prizer, Noah doesn't really have a great way to answer it. The best thing that Noah can do is power up a... Really, Noah's only line of play here is to power up a Roaring Moon EX, counter catcher up that Mew, and knock it out with the attack that doesn't damage the Roaring Moon. And then from there, Noah would have to, or Tim would have to power up that Dialga V-Star enough to knock out a Roaring Moon, which I don't think he has the energy left to do.
No. We need to find a Super Rod. Let's see if that play is going to be able to be made happen. We do see the EX come down. There's been at least 1, maybe 2 Dark Patches played so far. So be curious to see if there's any left in hand.
Yeah, I think only 1 Dark Patch played.
Only 1? Okay.
Yeah. I could be wrong. And he does have access to the Dunsparce.
I think I see a patch.
If
Oh, Explorers. Okay.
So he's going to have to double patch plus attach for turn to power up that Roaring Moon EX. Let's see
Possible,
what
but
this
difficult.
Explorer's Guidance finds him. He does have the counter catcher. He's got a counter catcher something this turn. Well, I guess not necessarily. Like if Tim is out of energy and Noah just knocks out the Zamazenta, there's not much that Tim can do until he finds that Super Rod.
It's not the cleanest for the prize trade, though.
No, not at all.
Tough decision here. Really trying to think through these options.
And Noah
And
just
scoops.
not able to find what he needs. Has to scoop there. It would have been, I think, a much different game if he had chosen to Prime Catcher, just even on that first turn. There were 2 turns that he could have Prime Catcher KO'd the Mew EX. Chose not to do it either of those times, and then Tim was able to use that Mew EX to take a 2-prize turn after using the Star Chronos. So really a 3-prize turn
Right.
with that Star Chronos. So by both players, it's a cool matchup to watch, that Dialga deck versus Ancient Box. Sort of 2 more rogue decks. Maybe Ancient Box is a little bit more meta than the Dialga, but very cool matchup to watch.
Yeah, very cool matchup, and yeah, unfortunately, we did see potentially a couple mistakes there, not being able to take out that Mew EX in time, but definitely some good games for sure.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Dialga deck after watching that? I've never seen a Dialga set up that fast.
I was gonna say, I mean, I think if it can set up like that every game, then I can definitely see it pulling some serious wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you're swinging for some serious damage with that Dialga. You're easily able to take out 2 prizers by turn 2 if you get set up like that. So
Yeah.
very interesting to see. I've only seen that deck be played on stream, I think, one other time during one of the regionals, maybe 2 regionals ago. It might have been actually EUIC.
Yeah.
And it was definitely interesting to watch, but it definitely didn't get set up as cleanly as that did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we will be right back here with a winner's interview with Tim and then our following rounds for tonight. So stay tuned.
And welcome back. We have Tim here for our winner's interview. And Tim, you have been piloting the Dialga V-Star deck here tonight. What do you think of it? How has it been setting up for you? Well, it seemed like it set up really well, actually, for you in that game.
I had about as perfect of a showcase as you could ask for Dialga on that turn 1 going second, getting everything down that I needed to put myself in position to maybe Chronos on turn 2. I'm loving the deck, honestly. The ability to take a second turn is just so insane when it's able to pop off. One of the kind of tricky things that I almost ran into in this matchup is just like energy management because we got some like expensive attacks. I almost regret like pre-attaching to the Metang that I had on there. In theory, I was like, well, I can set up a Metagross on a future turn, but like you saw at the end there, I was kind of digging for Super Rod and trying to get some energies to flow back in so I could Metal Maker again. But for the most part, I've been playing it on live. I've really been enjoying it, climbing up their ladder. I know it's a little bit easier to do now than it used to be, but I'm able to, take some wins, and it's been feeling good.
That's awesome.
So,
what would you say is its strongest matchup overall?
strong matchup. So I like going against anything that is like the big basic 2-prizer stuff because you get to likely take 4 prizes on your big Chronos turn.
Right.
So that's good. I like to avoid single prize ones. I wasn't exactly sure how the Baby Moon thing would go. But just being able to take multiple prizes, whether it be through Chronos or I was able to Prime Catcher the Greninja and then hit the Dunsparce, like...
Right.
Dialga's a lot more of a, like, Swiss Army knife than it ever used to be. When it first came out in Astral Radiance, I was trying it then, too, but it was very linear. It was very hit what's in front of you, knock it out and stuff, and now there's more tools and stuff that we can do with it. So.
Right, that Mew EX especially being able to not only serve as a little bit of a draw engine for you, but also being able to be that offensive presence, as we saw during that game, being able to take out cards like the Dunsparce, like Charmanders, like Pidgeys, all of those smaller evolving basics that we see, and even some of the non-evolving things like maybe a Comfey or something like that.
Oh, for sure. Well, and actually, you mentioned Charmander and stuff. I'm finding that Dialga is like surprisingly decent into Charizard, which is kind of counterintuitive because they have like Radiant Charizard and they can bop you for weakness. But if you're able to kind of dictate when the knockouts are taken, and maybe swing big late in the game, if you happen to like offset the prize trade and you're on single prize, then when they're down to 5, you can actually Mew and blow up their last Charizard, which is pretty cool too. Like you said, the utility of Mew has been insane.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, I think the next round is about to be starting here.
Sure.
Any final thoughts before we close this time?
No, I mean, thanks for having me back in here. I've been casting the last few weeks, so it's been good to get out on the chair and play a little bit. So excited to get into round 2.
Well, good luck in the rest of your rounds here tonight.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. See ya.
Welcome back to Tuesday Night Pokemon here at the Forge. I am Tom, joined by my co-host Austin, and we are just here for our normal Tuesday night league nights. Had a great round 1, Ancient Box versus that Dialga V-Star deck.
Absolutely.
Now we are going into our round 2 here. As we go down to the table, we have on the bottom versus William on the top. I know that William is most likely playing Charizard. Not sure what Edward is playing, so we'll all be surprised together.
Nice.
It looks like a Charizard mirror, however.
Got the fancy artworks there for those 60 HP Charmanders being able to do 30 damage for 1 energy. Surprisingly, a very relevant attack in some matchups, especially in the early game. Being able to help set up a couple of numbers, especially for those Charizard decks that are not playing the maximum belt.
Yeah, absolutely. Both players getting this Rotom out. However, Edward with this blinged out deck, you love to see it.
You do love to see it.
Alt Art Rotom.
Very
Need to get me
nice.
one of those.
Yeah. Rotom V, of course, you end your turn by using its ability, but you do get to draw 3 cards.
Also, my bad. Will is on the bottom. Edward is on the top. So Will's the one with the blinged out deck, which is not surprising to me at all.
Very cool.
He was showing me his binder earlier, and I was like, this is more expensive than my laptop that I'm carrying around.
And we see a Hisuian Heavy Ball come out here, taking a quick peek at the prizes. Very easy to prize check. Oh, hold on.
No, it's all good. Sorry. Yeah, we're good.
We've got.
Oh wait, so
this is not Charizard at all.
This is not a Charizard mirror. So I just saw Rotom, and my brain went to Charizard. But Edward playing this Snorlax control deck, which in ages past was pretty good against this Charizard deck.
That's right. Yeah, depending on if this Charizard list is playing multiple Tauros, whether it's playing the Team Yell Cheer, these are all going to be questions that are going to probably need to get answered here at some point. to be able to take a W against a stall
Mm-hmm.
list utilizing Snorlax.
Yeah, that Rotom V looking like a nice liability on Will's board right now for Edward to take advantage of. Gonna play. Oh, sorry. Okay, so Pokegear found that Arven, and then we're gonna see what he decides to play as the supportive turn. Has Misfortune Sisters as an option, not generally something that is as useful against Zard. Obviously, you can get rid of some of their rare candies and that sort of thing,
Right.
as well as Palpad if they play Turo Palpad. But we are going to see that Boss's Orders come down and trap that Rotom V in the active, and then just a pass. But something that people can forget to do often with the Rotom V, you never pass as the Snorlax deck. You instant charge to draw 3. But
Right.
Easy to forget sometimes.
Easy to forget, absolutely. Hopefully there will be remembering that. However, that
Will
Rotom was not going to be in the active for long. The Turo was already in hand, and we are seeing a Charizard come down.
Will just had Turo Rare Candy Zard in hand.
It's just that easy if you open those cards, isn't it?
Crazy.
Man. Now the only question is going to be: is there going to be the vacuum to be able to take off this Bravery Charm off of the Snorlax?
Yeah.
Because can only do 180 here, and will only be doing 180 the entire game.
Yep, absolutely.
Which means all these tools that are going to be being played by this control player here, they are going to be a nuisance for sure.
Edward probably wishing he'd played Eerie for turn instead. Get rid of that rare candy. But
Absolutely.
you never know. In the moment, it's always right to boss up the Rotom.
Right. Especially in those early turns, you think.
And he has the vacuum.
He has the vacuum.
Who needs Pidgeot's quick search when you just have it all in hand?
Absolutely incredible. Wow. And we see Burning Darkness come down. That Snorlax is not going to be able to take the heat.
The saving.
Oh, top deck's a Snorlax.
Yeah, I was going to say the saving grace here for Edward right now is he does have that Hero's Cape in hand, and this Rotom has 190 HP, so there's no way for Will to one-shot it. So he saved a little bit for now. He could Arven here for a switch cart to get back into his own Snorlax and then counter catcher up that Pidgey is a play that he could make. Obviously, Pidgey can attack. You really want to trap something like Rotom, Jirachi, Manaphy, Lumineon. But with that lost vacuum already gone from Will, that Hero's Cape is going to be putting in a lot of work on that Snorlax.
And we see in this Zard list, we see the Magma Basin. And actually, that Forest Sealstone will not be discarded.
Yeah, can't get rid of item or tools. Tools are no longer items.
Right. All of the former tool cards have gotten that Rata. So
Yeah.
good catch there by our players.
Will, the junior, always good to see our juniors picking up on those things. Those are the small intricacies that I think younger players can sometimes miss. But Will, a very experienced junior here in our local scene, calling that out and forcing his opponent to not discard anything. No items hit off of that Misfortune Sister. So we're just going to see that instant charge here to end Edward's turn and then back over to Will.
We'll see what he's able to come up with this turn. 190 HP, of course, being just on the threshold of being able to stay alive this turn unless he can find either a Defiance Band or a Choice Belt.
Gonna find a Charizard EX. Does he have the rare candy already? Team Yell Grunt going to shuffle back.
Looks like
Turo.
Pidgeotto, or maybe the only
Maybe-
targets here.
Maybe Rotom. It looked like he was like eyeing up the Rotom potentially. But
Oh, are those part of his discard there?
that's all his discard.
Oh, I
there.
see, 'cause that was from the Ultra Ball.
So Team Yell's Cheer only going to shuffle back that Professor Turo, leaving the basic Pokemon in the discard. They are now Mantine targets if Edward does play the Mantine, but a lot of these control lists have been cutting the Mantine, so I think it's always a safe bet to assume they don't play it.
Right.
He has the Professor Turo anyway in case his opponent does play the Mantine. And even if they do use the Mantine, obviously that's a turn off from having something like Snorlax in the active. So you're not trapped on that turn when they do use the Mantine. And has the second rare candy to evolve into that Charizard EX.
Yeah, it looks like the announced attack, they're just clarifying damage there. It looks like they're putting just a 10 damage to indicate that it has 10 health left on the Rotom.
Pokegear here for Edward. You have to assume he's looking for a penny at this point. I don't think he had one in hand. Only looked at the top 5. He can look at 2 more.
Chooses to go for the Silene. Unfortunately, that's not going to quite do it to save the Rotom here, but
Does
there's
have
another
Arven. Well, he does have Arven, so he could Arven for switch cart, counter catcher the Pidgey and trap it with the Snorlax.
That's true. Let's see if that's what he's going to be pulling up here.
And then that Force Seal Stone can find the penny on the following turn as well.
Did he have the counter catcher in hand? If not, he could.
He does.
He
yeah.
does. Okay.
Yeah, he has 2 counter catchers, I think, already in hand. I was expecting Will to go search for the Charmeleon, actually, on that last turn when he Ultra Balled. He did go find that Charizard, but if Edward ever puts that Mimikyu into play, Will could be in danger of just not being able to attack anything.
Right. That's definitely true. That ability preventing all damage done by Pokemon EX. Definitely annoying to
Yeah.
deal with as a Charizard player.
Do you see that switch cart? Get that Snorlax active, a counter catcher bringing up Pidgey, and now William is trapped for turn, but we know that he did shuffle that Professor Churro scenario back into the deck on the last turn. I also think he has a boss's orders in hand to just bring that Rotom right back.
Right.
So he would be able to retreat out of that Pidgey as well if he has the energy to do it.
And he just burned the Forest Seal Stone for the penny grab now.
I think it's fair to use that Force Seal Stone now only because there's so much damage on that Rotom anyway that if Will does have the boss, you want to make sure that you got the value out of that Force Seal Stone. Cannot penny.
Cannot penny, though.
I'll go stop. No, you're good. I didn't realize it had passed. Okay, so
Are we all good here?
we're actually on a new turn for Edward there, so he can penny. He had gone over back to Will's turn, and Will had just drawn and passed back.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we unfortunately we both missed that there. So.
Yeah, did not see that. So the penny does come down, bringing up that Rotom, getting that liability off of Edward's board, and now Will in a tough position here. He's going to have to draw into the Professor Turo, and we do see that Mimikyu in Edward's deck as well. That Mimikyu is going to be very dangerous for Will later on in this game, especially if he doesn't have access to that Charmeleon. Could be prized.
Absolutely. And a lot of these Charizard decks are not playing the Charmeleon that does 70 damage or the one that plays or that does 100 damage. They tend to be playing the one with the ability that prevents all effects of attacks. However, for 2 fire energy, it only does 50 damage, which is not enough to one-hit the Mimikyu, which can be a bit of a nuisance. Yeah, it looks like maybe we saw just another draw pass there.
I think Will's in a position where he needs to, he needs a lot. He needs to get, he has Boss to bring up the Mimikyu so he could retreat out of the Pidgey, but there's no reason to do that, given that he has nothing that can attack into the Mimikyu. So
Nest Ball
Will's
target here. So off the Misfortune Sisters, that Nest Ball is going to go away.
Will's shuffling up that deck, and I think as Edward, there's not a lot you do here except just keep passing with that Pidgey in the active. He's kind of set up his board in a very strong way here, and he doesn't really have to do anything until Will makes some moves. So play those Misfortune Sisters, play those Eries, start discarding resources out of Will's hand and out of his deck.
Absolutely. Getting ever closer to the deck out win condition here.
I think he could even bench that Rotom again and just instant charge to keep drawing cards, given that it's not really in danger of being knocked out in one shot. Obviously, you don't want to give Will extra targets, but you also want to have a pretty big hand as the control player. We see this Arven coming down from Will. Arven could find rare candy here, so he could evolve into that Pidgeot. Pidgeot would enable him to go tutor out that Professor Turo's scenario that he might need, or just as you know, that Pidgeot EX is a free retreater as well.
Right.
So when he bosses up that Mimikyu, he can retreat for free.
Could
This
see
is-
potentially a Prime Catcher grab on this as well. Or I didn't quite see what the ace spec was that they
Will
were
is playing the max belt.
He
We
is
saw
playing
it, yeah,
belt,
on
okay.
one of the Misfortune Sisters. We did
Oh,
see
that's
the
right.
max belt.
That's
yeah.
right.
Arven gonna find Ultra Ball for Sealstone here.
This this matchup just showing how intricate and difficult this can be for the Charizard player, and you know, especially if that was the only Team Yell's Cheer in the deck. If there's only one more use going to be able to be used out of that, then this could be a difficult
Yeah.
difficult matchup here. But
Yeah.
Stall definitely being one of these decks that can be a little bit difficult to learn how to play initially, but once you start getting the hang of it, things can feel pretty smooth. And right now, I think it's been very well positioned in the meta to be able to take advantage of a lot of the decks the way that they're being built right now. You're not seeing too many decks that are playing, 4 of copies of Switch
Yeah.
cards. You do, of course, have Lost Tina, which can be a little bit of a nuisance. They're playing sometimes even the Spiritomb to shut off the Rotom of your own. So that deck can be a little bit of a headache, but Charizard tends to be a pretty good matchup. Even Chien Pao can be a pretty decent matchup. A lot of really decent matchups for control right now.
And Edward off of this Pokegear finds an Erica's. Erica not really needed here. He does have something trapped, but does choose to take it. I think he also found a Misfortune Sisters in that Pokegear, and I might have liked to see that taken instead. You just want to keep milling cards at this point, I think. But maybe he's playing. He has Eerie, I know, in hand as well. He's eyeing up that Silene in hand too, so maybe he already had the supporter in hand that he was planning on playing for the turn here.
Right. Oh, he's going to go for the Ericas. And there is nothing in there to Ericas up to the front. It's tough when you have only a 4-card hand. You think to yourself, what if it's there?
And 2 of the cards already in that hand because of the Arven.
Right.
So I think safer there to just go for an Eerie or a Misfortune Sisters play.
I agree.
Ultra Ball going to get rid of Collapse Stadium and Arven here for Will. We'll see what he decides to tutor out with that Ultra Ball. Eyeing up the Luminion.
Curious what the thinking is here on this one. I suppose
Has the 4 Sealstones, so Luminion going to go find a supporter, that Professor Churro scenario. Also can utilize then the 4 Sealstone, but you really don't want to put any of these blue Pokemon in play.
no. Anything that's blue is definitely going to be a prime target to be counter-catchered up and stuck into infinity. Of course, being able to get a Turo earlier than you would normally be drawing it, of course, there is some value there, but you got to think of the trade-off.
Yeah.
What is the consequence of me doing this?
Plays the Professor Turo, gets that Pidgey out of the active spot. Charizard EX going into the active, going to swing for 180 into the Snorlax, but with that Hero's Cape A-Spec on it, not going to be enough for a one-hit knockout.
That is correct. And we know there is Penny, or no, Penny was played out of the hand. Never mind.
But has Counter Catcher to just bring that Luminion right back up in hand.
And multiple copies of Boss, so sort of a pick your poison situation here.
Can utilize that Silene, flipping heads. For each heads, can put a card from his discard pile onto the top of his deck. And it looks at least one heads there, maybe.
Yeah, it looked like one.
I guess it was none.
Oh, it was none. Okay.
Countercatcher going to bring up that Luminion. Unfortunately, that's now going to be trapped by that Snorlax. And Will in a tough position here. This has obviously been a historically very difficult matchup for these Charizard decks. Very difficult to pilot. Even when you get around the Snorlaxes, then you have the problem of the Mimikyus.
Right.
And you can just get into these scenarios where you're just not able to do anything. Will does boss up that Mimikyu so he can retreat out of the Luminion. But now he's playing Arven. Sorry, it's hard to tell.
And we just had a quick clarification. There was a turn pass that happened. Again, it's some of these can happen so quick it's difficult to difficult to tell without audio for us here. Players are
Looks like
discussing.
some clarification out there. I'm gonna
Yeah.
just go check.
Players are discussing something here. Tom is going to go check. Thank you everyone for your patience here. Should have this clarified here in just a moment. Looks like the Arven did actually get added back to hand, so it seems that there was maybe an error here.
Yeah, no, it was the same turn. He tried to Arven on the turn that he had bossed. So
Okay.
It's not a pass.
So we do have confirmation of that there. So 2 prize penalty typically is what is offered for that, but for control, not much of a not much of a boon actually.
We have a question here from John in the chat. Austin, what is your favorite deck to play?
You know, right now my favorite deck to play has been Charizard. It's just been a powerful deck, I think, in this format, obviously. And being a former Guardy head, it's nice to be playing a deck that requires a little bit less brain power to be able to pilot correctly. And so I've been enjoying that quite a bit. You know, you only have 2 or 3 decision points each turn, and sometimes not even that, to be honest. And so that has been pretty nice. Thank you for asking. That Luminion back into the active.
The question I think we're getting to here, though, is can Edward deck Will out before time runs out? We only have 8 minutes left in the round. And that deck is still looking pretty thick for Will.
It is. That's looking like at least 25 cards, I'd have to say.
Arven going to find a Super Rod, it looks like.
And maybe that's it. Oh, never mind. We do have a belt there.
Maybe eyeing up that choice belt. He also had TM Devolution in the deck. Just another card he could tutor out to thin if he's hoping to draw into something else that he can't tutor out with that Arven.
Right.
Certainly probably would like to see an Iono at some point.
Iono definitely
although-
being a powerful card, being able to, amass all of those cards that you've been saving from turn after turn after turn of potentially just draw passing back onto the bottom of the deck to make that win condition for stall that much more difficult.
Super Rod here going to shuffle back into the deck up to 3 in any combination, energy and Pokemon. Will eyeing up at least 1 fire energy here, and that looks to be it with that Super Rod.
I couldn't quite couldn't quite tell if there was any more energy in the discard there or not, but
I think it's just that one. He's got 2 energy already on each of these Charizards. That's 4 energy in play. Normally these Charizards are playing 6 fire energies.
right.
And then he had retreated 1 off of that Lumineon. So I do think that was the only one in the discard.
Well, Tom, just like you mentioned before, right? This this Mimikyu being in the active, just showing what a nuisance it can be.
Yeah.
There's nothing currently on the Charizard player's board that's going to be able to take care of this in any reasonable amount of time.
I would like to see Edward start playing a little bit faster here. He's established a board that Will can't really do anything against. And so this is the point in the game where you need to just start sort of draw passing and making this game go a little bit faster so you can get to a position where you deck out Will. That's really your only win condition, obviously, as the Snorlax decks. And the thing they're always fighting against, it seems, is time. Will draws for turn. It's just a Buddy Poffin. Passes. We're going to see both these players starting to play a little bit faster here. Silene, can't quite tell. One heads, it sounds like. And we're going to see what Edward decides to put back on the top of his deck. Eyeing up that Misfortune Sisters, I think that makes sense. Just another way to start milling cards out of your opponent's deck.
Yeah, Misfortune Sisters can be a devastating card for sure. Popping those rare candies, being able to get rid of, we've established that he's not playing Prime Catcher, but if he was playing Prime Catcher, that would be a target.
Well,
and
with
an Eerie.
the Eerie here, but no more counter catchers in Edward's hand. Just gonna target down. I think it looks like Super Rod and Nest Ball there, or maybe the Lost Vacuum.
I kind of like taking the Nest Ball.
Yeah, I think you take the Nest Ball here for sure. The Vacuum doesn't really do much to you.
Looks like an eeny, meeny, miny, mo to make the decision. Sometimes that's just what it takes.
Yep. And I imagine we'll just see a pass from Will here after that.
What do you think of Eerie and Charizard? Do you think that that is one of those cards that should be a mainstay, or is it something that you could see it being not an auto include?
Yeah, I think it's something that it's sort of like like that. You have a couple of tech slots in Charizard, and some players are playing that Eerie. I think that helps you against maybe some of the Lost Zone decks like Giratina, getting rid of Mirage Gates and Super Rods and that sort of thing, and switching cards. It's also obviously helpful against things like Chien Pao, getting rid of rare candies and the superior energy retrievals. You have to do it on the turn they have those cards in hand, obviously, right? It's not doing anything. So in my mind, Eerie can be very strong situationally. I'm not sure if I would play it if I was playing Charizard. I think the deck is already so strong that you don't really need to disrupt your opponent to win, like in that way. I think you're already like in a very good position. You just want to build it as consistently as possible. Eerie doesn't really help you against things like Control, which are probably your really bad matchups. So I'd probably like to see that slot go to something like a second Turo potentially, or a Palpad. It really depends on what these lists are playing. We did see the most recent Brazil regional. The winner of that did play the Eerie. Was not playing a Palpad, only one Turo. Those sorts of decisions were a little questionable to me. They also only had 2 Iono. So if Eerie's eating into slots like Iono and your ways to sort of beat Stall, I'm not sure I'd play the Eerie myself.
A little more questionable at that point, yeah. Yeah, I think the Eerie is a cute card for sure, but it's, kind of like what you said, its value is completely dependent on what actually is in their hand.
Got 3 minutes left in the round here. Will's deck is thinning out a bit, but he still has some Ionos, I think, in there that he can play.
Yep.
To, put cards back into the deck. We're going to have to see Edward playing a little bit faster, and it looks like he is starting to draw past pretty quickly here. Putting down another Snorlax. gets a Bravery Charm on that as well. We see Will drawing and passing, but like we said, Will has Ionos still, I believe, left in deck. So he's going to be in a position where he can be able to drop that hand size and fill his deck back up.
Right.
He's just got to make sure he does it before Edward gets to the point where he could just chi you for game, discarding the last 2 cards
Right.
in Will's deck.
That's going to be the sneaky out here. Let's see if he's going to be able to hit it or not. We see the Chi-Yu actually just got shuffled to the bottom of the deck there. So
Misfortune Sisters here from Edward hits nothing.
nothing.
Lots of Pokemon left in that deck.
That's correct.
There's the Ionos we've been talking about as Will shuffles up here.
Less than 10 cards in deck, but as we said, there is still the Iono option.
A minute about left in the round here. Penning up that Snorlax, I think. Just
That was the one
just
with
to do it.
damage,
Why not?
yeah.
Why not? Team Yell's Cheer going to shuffle some supporters back into the deck here for Edward.
Yep. Part of the continuous loop that Stahl is able to play. Silene, Team Yell Cheer, Pal Pad, all very powerful cards to extend your deck size into 70, 80, 90 cards potentially.
We'll see what Will is able to do here. I think he's kind of in a position trying not to lose, though, at this point.
Yeah, I think so. To be honest, that's where my mind would be at this point too. Is just trying to avoid a loss here. You know, time is imminently coming, and so if this is a situation you find yourself in at a regional where, you could probably squeeze out 10 more minutes of a game while still being able to play, not slow playing, but intentionally playing the game to avoid a lose condition. You're not in bad shape at this point.
Will, using that mist energy to retreat out of the Lumineon, could have Boss to bring up one of the Snorlaxes, but I think it's probably just too late at this point. We know, I believe, that that is time in the round.
Time in the round is called right there. Tom is going to just tell our players that time has been called. Unfortunately, it looks like this game is going to be ending in a tie. I don't think that there is a way for either player to end the game in only 3 turns. There's still 5 prize cards remaining here for our Charizard player. And for our Stahl player, I can't see a way where, with the Ionos still being a factor, being able to deck the opponent out. We do see the counter catcher come up with this Lumineon, though. And a Nest Ball for what we're expecting to see is a Chi-Yu here. Fire Energy is in hand. The question is he going to be able to get this into the active? Does he have a switch card? Does he have a penny option? Looks like not. Passing the turn. Well, it looks like there was an attempt to retreat the Lumineon here while Snorlax was in play in the active slot.
They're sort of just playing it back out, but they both know it's ending in a tie here. We are in turns.
Yeah.
Will's turn 1. Edward knows that he can't deck Will out on the next turn, and Will can't take 5 prizes. So we are just going to see a tie here. So well played by both of these players. Here in our round 2, Charizard, back in the day, the best it could really hope for was a tie against these Snorlax decks. Now with sort of the towards our decks that we're seeing now from EUIC, they have a little bit of a hope of beating these Snorlax decks, but it is still a very tough matchup. So well
Absolutely.
played by both players, and we will be setting up our round 3 here shortly, and we will be back soon. Stay tuned.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to Tuesday Night Pokemon here at the Forge. We are going into our round 3 here as we head down to the table. We have Oscar, I believe, on the bottom here versus Adrian on the top. Adrian piloting that Lugia V-Star deck versus Oscar's Turbo Hands. Historically, a pretty tough matchup for this
Right.
Lugia deck.
I was going to say, anything that is utilizing Iron Hands, especially if that Iron Hands can hit for base 140 or more, oh man, Lugia is having a tough time. And so we're going to see what happens with this matchup here, but this could be a bloodbath, Tom.
Yeah, it could be. But the thing is, Lugia has plays, man. He's got those rats now, those Cinchinos.
That's
He
true.
put in a lot of work. And historically, this Future Box deck can be a little bit inconsistent. So we'll see if Oscar's able to put together a good turn 1 here. It did seem like he's obviously got this Nest Ball. He did also have the Techno Radar. So he is going to be able to get his board set up here. But does he have the energy? He has the energy. He's got a Professor's Research. He's got everything he needs.
It seems like this is going to be a good turn for Oscar.
So we'll see the Techno Radar. Discarding that Arven Techno Radar, you discard a card from your hand and search your deck for 2 future Pokemon. So I imagine we're going to see an Iron Hands and maybe an Iron Crown coming down here. From Oscar, I'm looking through that deck and it looks like a couple Iron Hands might be prized. That was
Yeah.
the only one that I saw as he was searching through there, but I could
That's
be
true.
wrong.
That was the only one that I saw as well, but you know, it is difficult to see perfectly, not being able to be kind of right behind the person's shoulder.
Town Store going to find a tool here for Oscar, eyeing up that Heavy Baton.
Heavy Baton, while attached to a Pokemon with 4 retreat cost, if it is in the active spot, that's an important clarification. It has to be in the active spot and is knocked out
From
by damage.
Yeah.
You get to move any amount of energy from that Pokemon to another Pokemon, which is a very powerful effect to be utilized with this Iron Hands. And Lugia is definitely a deck that does not have a lot of options to be able to knock out the Iron Hands while it's on the bench.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be to the face, which means that these batons are going to be active this game.
Absolutely. And Oscar with this perfect research here, drawing 7 cards, not having to discard anything.
Right.
Into a pretty good hand, it looks like there. Has some more energy, has a Techno Raider, has a Future Booster Energy Capsule, supporters
Iono.
for next turn.
Yep.
Everything you really want to see there. So I imagine we'll see this accelerating peak from this active Miraidon here to accelerate 2 Lightning Energies out of that deck to that Iron Hands, getting it powered up to start doing some crazy damage on Adrian's side of the board in future turns.
That's right. With both those crowns on the bench, this and the tool, what the text says, being that it's only 40 damage, is a lie. It is
Yeah.
actually 100 damage
Yeah.
that is going to the face of this Snorlax. So, very powerful attack for 1 energy.
Yeah, amazing to be able to boost that damage output of that attack for just 1 energy, like you said, and accelerating energy out of your deck. Pretty crazy. Pretty cool
Absolutely.
deck, this Future Hands deck.
And don't count out that second attack on the Miraidon. If I remember correctly, there is psychic energy in this deck.
Adrian trying to figure out how he can piece a turn together here. Obviously, no Archeops in the discard pile yet. Serena, or Ultra Balling away Serena and Cinchino, it looked like there. Gonna go find himself any Pokemon, and it is that Archeops, so I imagine he's got either another Ultra Ball in hand or something like a Professor's Research.
Right. Let's hope in this case it is a research, because resources seem like they are running thin, and there are no Minchinos on this board yet.
Not yet, and that is something that Adrian's going to desperately need. A lot of energy also going into the discard pile with that Archeops, but maybe worth the sacrifice here if Adrian's able to find another Archeops, a way to discard it, and a Lugia V-Star off those 7 cards.
That would be huge. Being able to take a knockout here would mean that Ampy Very Much is not, I mean, it's certainly not guaranteed. It's still possible, but it wouldn't be guaranteed.
Does bench that first Minchino, so some Cinchinos could come into play on the following turn. Looks like, however, it's just a pass over to Oscar, which is going to put Oscar in a really strong position here. Knockout. That Prime Catcher is
Oh
going to be
my
able to knock
goodness.
out the Lugia V on that bench there. He has the Lightning Energy in hand to finish up powering up that Iron Hands, at least for that arm press attack, which is going to do enough damage with that Lightning weakness to knock out that Lugia V. Might not be able to
Absolutely.
take extra prize cards, but you don't really care if you're knocking out your opponent's only Lugia V before they've used that that V Star power.
Right. Being able to take 2 prizes as the first prizes that you're taking is way better than taking 1
Yeah.
for a deck like Iron Hands Crown Turbo, because this deck is going to be able to take 2 prizes for almost every single knockout, theoretically the entire game.
Yeah,
So,
for the rest of the game, whatever Adrian sends up here, all Oscar needs to do is attach another Lightning Energy to this Iron Hands, and it's going to be taking 2 prizes at least on it.
and Iron Hands did get ripped off the prizes. It's unfortunate that he can't immediately bench it. He would have
Yeah.
loved to be able to do that, but of course, you take those prize cards and you just have to stare at them for a
Yeah.
turn.
Mist Energy coming down onto that Snorlax, so it can attack on this turn, but he's going to boss up the Miraidon. Going to be able to take a knockout on this Miraidon with that Snorlax.
What do you think of this play? I'm not sure. It's hard for me to see what the exact value is of it here.
I mean, he got to take a prize card. He's just in a tough position right now. So taking a prize card there is nice. He couldn't knock out something like the Mew EX anyway because of the double turbo energy
Sure.
on that Snorlax. So at least, in Adrian's mind, I'm sure just being able to take a prize card is at least nice. And he does hit the double head, so that Snorlax is awake.
Wow. That's not something you get to see every day.
We are going to see Ampy very much be able to take 2 prize cards on that Snorlax.
Yeah, this will be a powerful Ampu. And it looks like another Iron Crown is going to be coming out.
Another
Oh, both of
interest-
them.
Yeah, both of them. Another interesting card in this deck from Oscar that we don't see in every single feature box list. I did get a glimpse of that TM Crisis Punch as well.
Yes.
Which is crazy that obviously that attack for 3 colorless energy, that TM allows you to do 280 damage, but you can only use it when your opponent has 1 prize card remaining. But with these Iron Crowns, you can boost that up to like 340, 360,
Very
which is
easily.
pretty crazy.
Yeah, which is, of course, enough to one-shot important threats in the end game like a Charizard
Yeah.
EX, which can, frankly, be a little bit of a difficult matchup simply because that Charizard does have so much HP. And it's not difficult to force a Charizard player down to 1 prize.
Yeah. Oscar would love to have a boss's orders in this hand, but it looks like just an Iono. Going to be able to free retreat out of this Mew EX, use Ampu very much to take 2 prize cards on this Snorlax. And Oscar's really asking all the questions here. Now, Adrian does have a way back in this game, depending on what his hand looks like off this Iono. I don't know if Adrian plays Lost Vacuum, but if Adrian could Lost Vacuum the Heavy Baton and then knock out this Iron Hands with Cinccino,
That would be huge.
I mean,
that
he
would
would-
swing tempo for sure.
the game would almost be over from that point. So we see that Ampu very much taking 2 prize cards on that Snorlax. Adrian putting up that that Minccino, and the question now is, can he get Lugia V-Star, Cinccino, another Archeops in the discard pile, and a Lost Vacuum? It's a lot to ask for from Lugia.
It is a lot to ask for, and frankly, I'm not even sure if Lost Vacuum is a standard include in some of these lists.
It is not. But some people have been playing it knowing that this Iron Hands matchup is tough for Lugia, and really the only way to swing it is to run them out of energy.
Right. We did get a Tails from this Capturing Aroma. A difficult card to be playing. It's these coin flip cards. It is a guaranteed resource, but you just aren't 100% sure what you're going to get. I think maybe the basic that was grabbed there was another Minccino.
Mist Energy coming down on to that Minccino, and then an Iono from Adrian. Big Iono here. Off of 5 cards. Can he hit what he needs?
There's a lot on the line here. As things stand right now, As soon as it gets to Oscar's turn, he just needs to declare an attack to win.
Ultra Ball gets rid of Archeops.
Okay.
Is the rest of that 5-card hand Lugia V-Star Lost Vacuum? I don't think
Lugia
it is.
V-Star is probably not Tom, but we could see it still. 2 cards out of the hand gone. We now see, or 3 hit cards with the Ultra Ball out of the hand. Now we see the Lugia V-Star. Actually, Tom, it is not possible. It
It is
can't
not.
possibly
It can't
be.
possibly
Can't
be.
possibly add up.
Unfortunate here for Adrian. But we are going to see that V-Star power finally that we've been waiting for all game from that Lugia, getting 2 Archeops from the discard pile
Yeah.
out onto his bench.
Tom, Lugia is one of those decks where, even in its current state, if it can do what it wants to do on its first turn, in the second, on those first and second turns of the game, this is absolutely still a top tier contender. Being able to hit so hard with those Cinchinos
Yeah,
is really an amazing boon to this deck.
absolutely.
But when it struggles to get consistently set up like we saw with this game, it is very difficult to stay in it.
Yeah, I'm just Ampy very much here is going to be the last 2 prizes
Yep.
for Oscar here. So well played by both players. Very tough matchup for the Lugia deck.
Absolutely.
Not much you can do about that matchup. There's been a lot of theory crafting I've seen in our local Minnesota Discord and all these things of how can you improve that matchup as Lugia. And unfortunately, I think that's just one of those matchups that you have to hope you have a really fast start. They have a slow start and you can beat it that way. But the Ampy very much is just so devastating, and the weakness as well. But even without the weakness, I think it would be a tough matchup. It's specifically tough because of the weakness. The fact that the Iron Hands can take 2 prizes on your Cinchinos every turn
Absolutely.
is also very difficult. But well played by both these players.
Absolutely, definitely, and definitely saw the power of Iron Hands Future Box with that Iron Crown there from Oscar. So
Yeah. So we'll be back here soon with a winner's interview with Oscar. Stay tuned.
All right, and we're back here with Oscar, who is our winner here from the last match that we just saw. And Oscar, tell us a little bit about that win. What did it feel like? Was there any highlight moments for you?
It felt really good. I think the highlight of that game was just, when my opponent could not find the Lugia V-Star to get his whole setup going. And I had the Arven right there to find the catcher. And I think the game was pretty much decided at that turn.
Yeah, that's kind of what it seemed like a little bit, because there just seemed like you had the options just wide open. So many things that you could do.
Yeah.
You had the Iron Hands to be able to rely on. You did prize 2 of them.
Yes,
but
that was the one thing that I was kind of worried about when I first kind of looked through my deck. Couldn't get this going with just 1 Iron Hands. And if not, then I really need to take some prizes and hopefully find one of the other ones.
Right.
I know that the matchup against Lugia probably is a little bit in the favor of Iron Hand just because of the weakness and being able to take 2 prizes off of the little Minchinos. But it turns out I didn't really need to do any of that, so.
Right. That was one of those matchups where Lugia defeated itself a little bit. Unfortunately,
Yes.
Lugia can kind of do that in this format right now. It's obviously an extremely powerful deck when it's able to do everything that it wants to. But if it doesn't have those optimal turn 1s and turn 2s, and you have games like what we just saw, it's a tough deck to play.
Certainly. I think my opponent also mentioned that he was looking for the fish, the Luminion.
Oh, yep.
And unfortunately, it was prized for him. And he was hoping to find it by knocking out one of my Pokemon. And he bossed up the Miraidon. And it was the one prize that he took. But then I played the Iona on the following turn, so it actually got shuffled back into his deck, or got placed on the bottom of his deck.
Interesting. Yeah, that's one of the things is a lot of these Lugia decks are only playing 1 Luminion right now. So if they prize it, then that's really, really tough.
Yeah, it's just a gamble on like what I think we were both discussing. A lot of decks wanted to go second nowadays, so he really wanted to go second as well, but I won the coin flip, so I chose to go second. So he didn't really have the best turn 1 setup, and that was pretty much the game.
And that's pretty much the game. Well, Oscar, I know you're going to be going to the Indianapolis Regionals here. Is this going to be the deck that you're going to be piloting, or have you thought about a different deck? Tell us what your thoughts are.
I think this is the deck I'm most familiar with, so this will probably be the deck that I'll end up playing. But with my traveling companion, we may be testing some other decks once we get there. Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we'll have some time to be able to figure that out. So, if you're going to Indianapolis, be sure to pick a deck that you feel comfortable with and that you've done some good testing with. So that's probably the best advice anyone can give you. So,
and maybe we will see you there.
Absolutely. Well, Oscar, thanks for coming back and doing an interview here with us. And that was the end of our last round here. So we are going to be signing off from the Forge here for the rest of the night. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Good night.